The ACC has just released the conference openers for every team in the league. We'll tell you who's going to start their season 0-1.
You are Locked On ACC, your daily podcast on the Atlantic Coast Conference. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Happy Friday. Shout out to the everydayers, and thank you so much for making Locked On ACC your first listen and your first watch today. We're available free wherever you get your podcasts. We're free on YouTube. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code Locked On College for $20 off your first purchase. I am Alex Donno from Locked On Canes. He is Kenton Gibbs from Locked On Wolfpack. We'll talk about the top week 0 and week 1 matchups, most of those non-conference that were put out earlier this week. But on Friday afternoon, the ACC revealed the conference opener for every team. Let me see if I can share the screen here for those watching on the YouTube version. Of course, we'll talk about these at length for those who are listening to the audio version. All right, so and Kenton, obviously some of these are redundant, but not all the teams have, the same openers as the team they're facing to open up their ACC schedule, if that makes any sense. But I think it does. So the right from Kenton would say that.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. It makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. So we'll start KG. Boston College is going to take on Stanford on the road week 3 for their ACC opener. Is BC starting their year 1-0 in the conference?
I believe so. I think that Stanford is, they're struggling in a major way. And the thing about Stanford is they showed the glimpses. They have wins over 2 of the better schools in the conference last year in beating Louisville and Syracuse. 2 upper half of the conference teams. But other than that, not much to show for what they've been doing so far. So I think BC wins that one.
And that's going to be, of course, the first full season for Grayson James. I think it'll be the last full season because he's a senior this year, the new Boston College quarterback who took over late in the season when Thomas Castellanos was benched and ultimately hit the transfer portal. So, yeah, BC has the opportunity to go out west and beat Stanford for their opener week 3 in conference. A week 5 opener for the Cal Golden Bears. That's going to be beginning the post-Fernando Mendoza era out there in Cal, and they're going to be on the road at Boston College. So BC is going to be their opener on the road. Is Cal starting out 0-1?
The Boston College Eagle faithfuls are going to be very excited by the 2 California teams this year on their schedule. I think that Cal loses this one. Here's the thing, right? When you look at Cal last year, all of the pieces they had, it was supposed to be the potential of, hey, they could do something special. They could upset the apple cart. They could be something really good. I think the perception of who they are versus who we thought they would be turned out to be extremely different. And so Cal was a letdown last year. I don't see a road to instant rebuild this year. I think they're going to struggle, and I think they're going to lose this first ACC game on the road in Boston.
By the way, the quarterback who is projected, he's got to win the job at Cal, but the quarterback projected to win that starting job, Kenton, I kind of hope he doesn't win the starting job because I'm going to have to learn to pronounce this young man's name. Juran Kiwe Sagapolutele. That might be the starting quarterback for Boston. Is Chandler Rogers still there? I hope he wins the job.
Donno, come on, man. Come on. You know that Cal, the West Coast teams are always going to have a very deep foothold in the Samoan and API communities. You know what I mean? So you're going to get some names like that sometimes.
I'm just going to call him JKS. I'm going to go with the initials if he ends up winning that starting job there for Cal. The conference opener, this is a good one. The conference opener for Clemson is going to be on the road at Georgia Tech. I mean, Kenton, you and I know we both agree that Clemson they're the paper Tigers this year. They should be the favorites, and I think they will be the favorites to win the ACC. But that's a tough opener. I mean, Georgia Tech, they get their starting quarterback back for another year. It's hard to believe he's got another year of eligibility left, but he's back. That's not going to be an easy out for Cade Klubnik and Clemson.
I agree. The only thing that makes this a little bit easier is how close Atlanta is to Clemson, number one. And number two, the fact that Clemson's played in Atlanta multiple times. Like, that's not going to be a new situation for them in terms of, we don't know where anything is. We don't know where things are logistically. Our team, our ops people are going to have a hard time. But I will say this. That is the one that I'm looking at right now, saying don't be surprised if we see an upset the most. But I think Clemson takes it, but don't be surprised.
Yeah, we'll see if Haynes King's got something for them in that ACC opener for Clemson. All right, so for the Duke Blue Devils, this one's near and dear to your heart. Duke's ACC football opener is going to be week 4 at home against NC State. I love NC State's quarterback, CJ Bailey. I know NC State lost a lot of players to the portal on the defensive side of the football. Kenton, Duke, there's some turnover there. We'll see how Darian Mensah, how he starts his first 3 games before he takes on NC State. But is NC State going to make Duke start out 0-1 in the conference?
I struggle to call this one. I believe that Duke wins it, though. And let me tell you why. I think this NC State team is set up in a way that their only path to having a lot of success this season, every game is the old Big 12 style. Defense is optional. And if that is the style of game, I think NC State is in very good territory. The only problem is nobody, and I mean nobody in the ACC disguises a defense quite like Manny Diaz. And if that's the case, we could see another offensive disaster class like NC State saw against Duke last year. Duke starts off in the conference 1-0. Luckily, that's not NC State's first game, so they don't start off over.
Right. Yeah. All right. So moving on. How about Florida State? They can only get better from their 2-10 season, 1 conference win in 2024. The Seminoles are going to open up their conference schedule on the road. That'll be week 5 at the Virginia Cavaliers. I don't know what to make of Virginia this coming season, Kenton. I certainly don't know what to make of Florida State, but that's going to be the start of the Thomas Castellanos era in conference play for them. Of course, he's an ACC veteran, having played at Boston College. How much better is Florida State's how much better is Florida State's offensive line and their defense, but especially their offensive line going to be? And are the Seminoles going to start 1-0 in ACC play?
Hey, Donno, I need you to look me in my eyes when I say this, okay? I know you're going to get excited about this. Florida State ain't learned their lesson yet. They ain't learned their lesson to stop scheduling Bama when your team is on the precipice of like being destroyed or becoming good.
Opener,
They scheduled their first game against Alabama, where I believe they're going to get their teeth kicked in next year. Now, when that happens, they're going to start to see an unraveling of that team very early. And I don't think they win this game at UVA. I think the Who's pull this one off. And I think that the Noles start off 0-1 in conference.
Ooh, I like that. How about that? A hot take to start the way here. Seminoles are starting 0-1 in ACC play, and hopefully they start 0-2 because we'll talk about in a few minutes who they play in their second conference game. We already talked about Georgia Tech versus Clemson. That is the ACC opener for both of those teams. It is for Georgia Tech as well. Louisville is going to be taking on Pitt. Louisville is going to be breaking in a new starting quarterback, Miller Moss, who, of course, has some experience coming out of USC, and their coach, Brom, is a quarterback whisperer. But it's going to be the same quarterback for Pitt. Eli Holstein is going to be back. The game's going to be in Pittsburgh. And listen, Kenton, last year, Pitt started red hot. They won their first 7 games before losing all the rest. Are they going to start out hot again this year?
This is such an interesting game because I like both of these teams a lot. However, I think that ending for Pitt last year sucked a lot of the air out of that team. And I think that carries over into this year as opposed to a Louisville team that by and large finished better. I'm not saying they finished great because losing to Stanford late in the season was abysmal, but they finished better. They also had an upset of Clemson late in the year. So I think that, for all that Pitt brings in their ability to stop the run, they've got to stop 2 of the most prolific backs in the conference in Louisville, not to mention they're going to have themselves a quarterback because Louisville always finds a way to throw the ball decently well. I've got Louisville winning this one against Pitt, starting off 1-0 in conference.
Yeah, I think that's fair. And, obviously that game is happening week 5. So we're going to get a good look at both of those teams before that game. But I would imagine if you're making odds for that right now, I would think Louisville would probably be favored by more than a field goal, even on the road. There may be 5.5 points, something like that. When we come back, you're going to have Miami's conference opener is going to be their biggest rivalry game of the year. We'll have NC State's conference opener and all the others for you as well. You want to keep it locked right here, my friends. Alex Donno alongside Kenton Gibbs. We're only getting started on this brand new episode of Locked On ACC. Oh, do you know we're only getting started with the Game Time app? Guys, Game Time is the only ticket app that Kenton and I use. We're getting the best deals, the best prices, the best features on the Game Time app. I recently got hockey tickets on Game Time, concert tickets for a big show coming up this summer. Folks, you want to check this out, and you're going to be happy you did. And a new feature on Game Time makes it even easier to create those unforgettable moments. The new feature is called Game Time Picks. It filters out all the fluff and shows you only the best deals on great seats so you can focus on what matters, being there. And guys, we got NFL Conference Championship games coming up this weekend. You can find the best deals for tickets to NFL playoff games on the Game Time app. Guys, I love getting a panoramic view from my seat before I buy, on-time ticket delivery, lowest price guarantee. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONCollege, all one word, for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Thank you so much for making Locked On ACC your first listen and your first watch today. For your next listen, make sure you check out our other shows. Kenton Gibbs and Grayson Boone do an awesome job on Locked On Wolfpack. I host Locked On Canes, so we keep you updated on everything NC State, on everything Miami. And Kenton, for Miami, they get the big grudge match, and Florida State will be looking for a little payback after falling to Miami. Florida State lost almost everybody last year, but they'll be looking for some payback because they're going to host the Miami Hurricanes Week 6, Saturday, October 4th. It's not going to be Florida State's ACC opener, but it will be Miami's. So that'll be our first and, well, only look at Carson Beck in a Miami uniform going up against the Seminoles. That one should be interesting.
Oh, this one here is going to be the beginning of Carson Beck's Heisman campaign. I'm lying. I'm a liar. That's not a thing. There is no such thing as a.
Well, he's already. It won't be the beginning. He's already going to be favored for the Heisman by week 6.
Yeah, I'm sure, Donno. I'm 1,000% sure of that one. No, but in all seriousness, I think that Miami rolls in this one. I don't give Florida State much of a chance here. But here is the thing, though, for Florida State fans. I really do believe that after taking some lumps and after kind of getting beat down a little bit, they're going to circle the wagons after this game. I really and truly believe that.
Yeah. Yeah, so we got Miami going 1-0 to start their ACC schedule, which I guess would put Florida State at 0-2 because Kenton had them losing to Virginia in their opener. This one's going to be Kenton. I cannot wait. Also on week 6, so the same day as Miami, Florida State, you're going to have the ACC opener for Bill Belichick, and it's a tough one. He's going to be taking on, at home at least, the Clemson Tigers. So you talk about a baptism by fire for old Belichick, and who knows, it might be his one and only ACC season as head coach of the Tar Heels. He's going to get a good one going up against Dabo Swinney. I don't know. I feel like I'm going to be rooting for Clemson in that one, but is North Carolina, are they starting 1-0 in conference schedule, Ken?
Who's their quarterback, Donno? Who's going to be their quarterback? Who's the guy? You know,
Tom Brady's got a year of eligibility left.
I kept hearing all this talk about, oh, they're going to pay Quinn Ewers. They're going to pay Quinn Ewers. Quick question, Donno. How long did Quinn Ewers have to enter the portal?
He's not. He's already locked into the NFL draft now.
Huh. That's interesting.
He's not going there. He's locked.
So who's going to be your quarterback? Yeah, this obviously ain't going to go well. You know, I feel like we've already learned this lesson with Bill Belichick, but apparently we have to learn again. It's never about your X's and your O's. It's about your Jimmies and your Joes. And if none of your Jimmies are named Thomas Patrick Brady, it's going to be a tough time. You're not going to have a great time if you're Bill Belichick.
Let me pull the old schedule up there for those watching the YouTube again. So that'll be Bill Belichick is going to open up his ACC schedule against Clemson. Your North Carolina State Wolfpack, Kenton. They will be, we already mentioned them for somebody else's ACC opener, but their ACC opener, your ACC opener is going to be at Wake Forest on September 11th, week 3. NC State, they're starting 1-0 in the conference, right?
They should.
They better.
They ought to. No, but seriously, I think this is a Wake Forest team. Year one with the new coach. Obviously, lots of turnover, lots of change happening there. If NC State has any hopes of being anything decent, you have to win this game. This is one of your must-win games. And by the way, for anybody thinking I'm saying that because I'm wearing my Wolfpack colored glasses, my bold prediction on the Wolfpack season on Locked On Wolfpack was that they're going to win 5 or less games or 8 or more. So it's an equal chance of either one of those things happening. But I highly doubt that they'll be exactly in that 6-7 game range. I think that this year is going to be different one way or the other. I got that feeling, but I don't know which way. I want NC State to win this game. They should win this game, but we'll see.
We already mentioned because Pitt's conference opener, it's the same game we talked about with Louisville. So Pitt's going to be hosting Louisville, but we both picked the Cardinals over the Pitt Panthers. So the Panthers are going to start 0-1. Not necessarily an easy conference opener for SMU, although we know who SMU's quarterback is going to be, Kevin Jennings. And if not, he'll have, Tyler Van Dyke holding a clipboard there, maybe ready to come in if needed. I don't know who the quarterback is going to be for Syracuse, though, Kenton. They're going to have a competition there. Kyle McCord, he briefly tried to challenge for an extra year of eligibility, but he ended up dropping his appeal and declaring for the NFL draft. But Pitt gave almost everyone headaches this past season, Kenton, and they had a 9-win season. They were knocking on the door of being an ACC championship contender. So for SMU, the defending ACC runner-ups, I guess that's not a thing you defend, but the team who came in second place last year, they're not going to have an easy conference opener against the Orange.
Well, as my boy Jimmy Phillips would say, they're just the ACC regular season champs. And I love what Fran Brown is building up there in Syracuse. Yeah. However, I think that, this game is going to come down to better quarterback, and I think that you're looking at an unproven commodity versus Kevin Jennings. So I think he'll clean up some of those errors. I think he'll learn, hey, sometimes being the hero that saves the day is about not playing hero ball. Sometimes that moment of saying, you know what, this play's dead, throw it away, burn it, is what's going to get me where I need to be. And I think that they'll beat Syracuse by a slim margin here, because on top of Syracuse losing Kyle McCord, they're also losing massive chunks of production out of that receiving core. And I believe LaQuint Allen is going too, or am I incorrect there?
Yeah, I believe so. Yeah, he's
Gone. So you're losing massive swaths of offensive production. The defense is the defense. The mob has been good for years, but I really do think that there'll be a drop off from last year. And I think SMU wins this one and starts off 1-0 in conference.
I like it. We already talked about Stanford, Boston College. That's the ACC opener for both. We have BC winning that one on the road. Now for Syracuse, their ACC opener is going to be at Clemson on week 4. I'm going to pick Clemson to win that game, Kenton. Again, I think that's the odds-on favorite to win the ACC this year. Stability and continuity with their quarterback, their offensive coordinator, the head coach all being back from last year. They have a new defensive coordinator to fix some of those problem areas. Clemson's going to win that game.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't think that there will be much to talk about in terms of this game because, again, I think Syracuse had a great year last year. And I'm not saying that was lightning in a bottle and, Coach Fran Brown can't repeat that. I'm not saying that at all. What I am saying is Clemson's going to be a buzzsaw next year. Clemson is going to be hard as hell to beat next year. And I just don't think that Syracuse has the horses in the stable to get a win there.
All right, so the last ones we have, Virginia is going to open their ACC schedule at home versus Stanford. Do we have the Cavs starting 1-0 in conference?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
I think so.
Yeah.
I think Stanford is just in a bad way right now, football-wise. And I think UVA, while they're not in a great way, while they're not necessarily going to be dominant this year, I think that they do at least start off pretty hot based on who they're going to be seeing early in conference.
We already talked about Wake Forest is going to be home against NC State, where NC State should win that game, probably will win that game. But Virginia Tech is also going to open their conference schedule at NC State. And Virginia Tech was one of the big enigmas from last year. It was like close but no cigar was the storyline for them in so many big games, Kenton. They played well at times, although I thought Kyron Drones underperformed based on how good he was in 2023. So what are you expecting when you guys are going to be hosting Week 5 Virginia Tech for Va-Tech's ACC opener?
You know, every time there's a player that's enigmatic, up, down, all over the place, and you know this better than anybody with De'Aaron King at Miami.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, they play NC State and they become superstars. Kyron Drones is going to have himself a night where he cannot miss. He's going to put every throw in the bucket. He's going to make every read properly. And when he pulls it down, if you blink the wrong way, if you look and squint your eyes, that one will start to look like a 7, and he'll look like Michael Vick of back in the day. I think that the Hokies start off 1-0 in conference against NC State.
Coming up next, so Ohio State, they are national champs, but could they be about to lose one or more of their top wideouts, potentially to the ACC? You want to keep it locked right here. We're not done yet on this brand new episode of Locked On ACC. Thank you for making us Locked On ACC your first listen and your first watch today. Make sure for your next listen, you check out Locked On College Football. Spencer McLaughlin does an incredible job taking you around. And I know even though the season is over, you guys know there's always something to talk about. Off-season moves, transfer portal. In fact, Kenton, this may be something that Spencer is talking about this week. So on 3 Sports, on 3 are a bunch of snitches, Kenton, because every time there's someone who's allegedly being tampered with, on 3 is like unnamed schools are making offers to players that are currently on this, that, and the other. I've seen it happen multiple times over the past month. But this is so according to On 3, Jeremiah Smith, who, you know, one of the best players in the country, and Carnell Tate, another excellent wide receiver at Ohio State, are both getting big money, 7-figure NIL offers and from unnamed schools. And in the case of Jeremiah Smith, On 3 reported he's received a $4.5 million offer from an unnamed school. And I guarantee you there's more than one school that's trying to make some kind of a backdoor deal for Jeremiah Smith. And, you know, listen, could be, you think about teams with big pockets. It could be somebody like Oregon with the Phil Knight, Nike money. Florida have been, reportedly big NIL spenders because they're using the Billy Napier buyout money instead of buying him out. They're just spending money on players, and I commend them for it. And obviously Miami is going to come up with Jeremiah Smith. He's South Floridian, played at Chaminade Madonna. He's got multiple high school teammates who are on Miami. Miami tried to get him out of high school. So ultimately, Kenton, I expect Jeremiah is going to stay at Ohio State, but there's some schools out there who may be giving him a lot to think about.
$4.5 million damn things to think about is a whole lot to think about.
It's a lot of things to think about.
I'm going to tell you this. I've said this time and time again, and I stand by this, right? You go to college to get a good job. You get a good job to get the money. Now, college athletes have figured out how to circumvent this thing a little bit because you don't need to go pro to get the money anymore. Jeremiah Smith, if I was you, hey, brother, you loyal to the soil. Good for you. Good for you. But let me tell you something. Me, oh, baby, I'll be a mercenary. At that pay rate, at that amount there, hey, listen, Ryan, it's been nice. It's been good. It's been fun. I ain't going to say nothing about who's offering me what. But yesterday's price is not today's price. The only thing I'll say about ACC teams being involved with this, I don't think anybody can, Brian Smith of Locked On Seminoles talked about the fact that 4.5 is not the biggest deal that he's heard. And I'm going to tell you something. I trust that. I trust that guy a lot when it comes to recruiting. If somebody's offering him more than 4.5, I'm sure it's not a team in ACC. Yeah. Because most of us do not have that type of Skrilla laying around to pay to star quarterbacks, let alone a receiver, where it's like, hey, we got to pay you and the guy getting you the ball and the guy's protecting the guy getting you the ball. I don't think that would be the case.
I can't, and obviously I don't know Jeremiah personally, but, being in South Florida, I know a lot of people who who know him and the family. I'm not expecting him to leave OSU. And I think the Buckeyes will do whatever they can to keep him there, even if that means giving him an NIL raise, because he's a cornerstone of that program right now. And they understand what a commodity he is. And I think for someone like Carnell Tate, who's very good, but not on the JJ level, maybe it's more likely that he's not getting $4.5 million. He's getting maybe numbers that are north of $1 million, not $4.5 million, where maybe Carnell, wants to become a number one somewhere else, because that's obviously not going to happen in Columbus. So I think that might be more likely. I'm not expecting Jeremiah to move. And he actually, he did comment, somebody tagged him in an X post today that said, ain't going to happen. That family is too loyal. Good try, though. And Jeremiah quote tweeted it with the 100% emoji. Like he's letting people know he's sticking with Ohio State. So ultimately, I think that's going to end up being the move. But listen, if we could get him in the ACC, I would love it.
Let me tell you something. Somebody once asked me, Kenton, I can't remember what podcast I was on. I believe it was a Alabama podcast. And they asked me, Ken, if somebody paid you $3 million a year over the next 5 years, would you make a UNC exclusive podcast rooting for only UNC? I said, $3 million a year over the next 5 years, I'll burn every damn thing I own that's red or NC State related. You understand me?
Yeah.
Listen, I love me some State. I hate the Dirty Foot Club. But you know what I like more than that? Hey, Mom, you're done working. Go ahead. You're done. Go ahead. Come on. You ain't never got to work again. Man. You know what I mean? Telling my nephews and nieces, hey, all y'all colleges paid for. Uncle Ken's got it. Don't worry about it. We got that out the way right now. So, good on Jeremiah Smith. And I'm sure Ohio State's going to do right by him. You know what I mean?
Yeah, they're going to do right by him. Yeah.
I'm sure they're not going to be like, hey, you turned it down. Now we're going to give you $500,000. Obviously, that's not going to be the case. They're going to give them something that's close to that. But, like you said, it'd be great to have him in the ACC. I'd love that. I'd absolutely adore having that young man in the ACC because he is a hella fine ball player.
No doubt about that. By the way, I know we didn't get to top week 0 and week 1 matchups. We'll get to that next time on Locked On ACC. Make sure you check out Kenton at TGIF_Kenton on X. Check me out at Locked On Canes, and make sure you hit the thumbs up button, like and subscribe. And we'll talk to you next time on another episode of Locked On ACC, part of the awesome Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.